How did you do as a wildlife crime scene investigator? We're going to take a look at each scenario and then investigate a list of potential victims and suspects. Together, we're going to find out who committed these heinous nature crimes. Scenario number 1, murder in the marsh. It's lakes, ponds, and streams that I love, and cattails towering far above. But my habitat was shattered by something that really mattered, this small, slender hunter that I'm sick of. Both the limerick and the title would indicate that our victim and our predator were part of Michigan's wetland habitats. And in Michigan, that kind of narrows down the prey species to either a muskrat or a beaver. This pelt is soft, thick, and waterproof. And the incisors, the sharp teeth, would indicate that this is definitely a member of the rodent family. But when you compare this size of this pelt to its close relative, yeah, you can tell that our victim was a muskrat. What about the predator? Take a look at that long, slender body and that incredible set of teeth. Yes, this is a member of the weasel family. But which weasel? Well, again, using the wetland habitat, this must be a mink. So murder in the marsh, our victim, the muskrat, our killer, the mink. Scenario number 2, bloodshed in the backwoods. One day I was chewing a tree. My teeth should be the key. But I did not hear, coming up from a rear, a beast that's bigger than me. Chewing a tree? Yes. The victim in this next scenario? The beaver. Look at those large incisors, again belonging to Michigan's largest rodent. Then creeping up from behind the beaver? Yeah. You can tell the answer to this pretty easily. The predator? Look at the size of that skull, the pelt, the track, and even that. Bloodshed in the backwoods. Our victim, the beaver, our killer, Michigan black bear. Scenario number 3, canine carnage. My death I tried to fake. I thought it was a piece of cake, but he was too smart and played his part. My life he was sure to take. My death I tried to fake? Well, that hint and the scraggly pelt pretty much indicates that this is a possum. And the animal that took it out looks like a canine to me. After all, it is the canine carnage scenario. Take a look at that large skull too. This is a coyote. So wait, you were thinking, wait a minute, how do I know that's not a fox? There are gray foxes in Michigan, which are not the red fox we're familiar with, but their skull, quite a bit smaller. A fox compared to a coyote. So, canid carnage, a possum killed by a coyote. Scenario number 4, hopped up on homicide. In a race, I'm always in the lead. I thought I had great speed, but it mattered not. Went out like a rocket it shot, and now I'm just part of its feed. An animal with great speed, always in the lead? You had to be thinking about a rabbit, right? In Michigan, that would either be an eastern cottontail or a snowshoe hare. So this one was a little bit tricky because this is really the pelt of more of a domesticated rabbit. It does have the rabbit skull, though. This is a cottontail skull. Looks a lot like a rodent, but they aren't actually rodents. As for the predator, well, I'm hoping you're thinking that was a bobcat. Beautiful pelt and a very short snout. Much different than the canine skulls we've seen so far. Much like your cat, but of course, a bit bigger. So, the answers to this one, the rabbit and the bobcat. Scenario number 5, massacre by the meadow. There I was browsing away, not thinking about becoming prey, when this big dude appeared and began acting weird. It wasn't going to be my day. One of our easy scenarios, I think. Not much left of this victim. Piece of scraggly pelt there and a part of an antler. That would probably lead you to believe it was a white-tailed deer. And then the predator, pretty large animal, with again a very canine looking skull. So yes, this is a wolf. So massacre at the meadow, a deer taken down by a wolf. Scenario number 6, a nocturnal nightmare. I don't have thorns or a shell. My best defense is my smell. But that thing didn't care. It came down from the air. And now my night has gone to, well. The defense was my smell. And by looking at this critter, you have a pretty good idea that our prey species was the skunk. So what killed our skunk? First of all, it was an animal that wasn't bothered by the smell of a skunk or even skunk spray. It would be an animal that could creep up on this skunk so quietly it wouldn't even know it was coming. It was a nocturnal nightmare for sure. It was the great horned owl, our first non-mammal in our series. The great horned owl flies silently, easily snuck up, and with these giant talons could easily dispatch the skunk. So the answer to our nocturnal nightmare? A skunk taken out by a great horned owl. Scenario number 7, a prickly panic. This critter is tough to kill. It's hard to avoid the quills. I gave no chase, just bit his face, and now he's not so thrilled. So the quills were a dead giveaway. Looking at the skull, we can tell this is another member of the rodent family, and a rather large rodent. And of course with those quills, yeah, you guessed it, our victim was the porcupine. But what can kill a porcupine? As it turns out, not much. But one member of the weasel family is very effective at it. Larger than the mink, this is something called the fisher, not a well-known weasel in Michigan. Take a look at that skull as well. Perfect for the job. The fisher moves into a porcupine and bites it on the face repeatedly until it succumbs, and then flips the porcupine over and attacks its belly once it's dead. This time, a prickly panic? That was the case for this porcupine, as the fisher came up to do its job very, very well. Scenario number 8, death near a den. I love to bask in the sun. My predictions are second to none. But she was sly. I'm doomed to die. Now me and my shadow are done. My predictions are second to none. Like basking in the sun. And, you know, I could even see its shadow at one point. Yeah, this was a woodchuck, also known as a groundhog, sometimes even a whistle pig. And it was taken out by the most obvious critter that you've probably seen in the whole series, the red fox. So, Death near a den. Woodchuck killed by a red fox. Station number 9. A speedy slaying. It gave me quite a fright, this bullet dressed in white. I threw up my seeds and then I peed before it gave me the final bite. Okay, you can tell from the size and the shape and the color of this assassin that we have ourselves an ermine, one of the true weasels in Michigan, a small but powerful skull, and it picked on something really, really small here. A rodent skull that small, that's got to be a mouse. This is the skull of a deer mouse. So if you picked up a wild mouse of some kind and the ermine, you got this one right, a speedy slaying. Scenario number 10, a hardcore hit. The ambush was really low tech. He just grabbed me by the neck. To my surprise, even at my great size, it didn't slow him down for a sec. So this was pretty easy, right? The prey species, looking at that antler, the size of that hoof. This is an elk, even a radio-collared research elk, as you can tell. What about what killed the elk? It had to be a large animal. Well, by the tawny pelt, that enormous skull with huge canines, and that large paw, well, that's got to be a cougar. So the only problem with this scenario right now, our elk population relegated to the lower peninsula, and the cougars that we find on trail cameras in the upper peninsula, that's the only place. So a future scenario for sure, but for now, this hardcore hit is only a fantasy. Scenario number 11. Murder across state lines. The streak now stands at 8. The losses I'm beginning to hate. So I'll eat these nuts like they're cold cuts. And maybe that'll improve my fate. Look at this incredibly beautiful animal. What a pelt. Coloration, great tail. Look at these claws. And a beautiful skull. I mean, this is a great carnivore right here. But unfortunately, this incredible piece of killing machine has not been able to annihilate the Buckeyes. At least not in recent times. So murder across state lines? Well, for now, you can only wish. Well, that's it for Mammal Mania. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for our next set, Mammal Mayhem, the sequel.